For my presentation, I'm going to be doing the history of Afghanistan around the time period that the novel was based around. So on Christmas in 1979, Russian soldiers landed in Kabul, which is the capital of Afghanistan. The country was already in the middle of a civil war. So Amin, which was like the prime minister at the time, tried to put aside Muslim tradition within the people, like within the country, and he wanted more Western slant to Afghanistan. The majority of the people in Afghanistan were not happy about this because the Muslim belief was like very common in their country. So there were thousands of Muslim leaders that were arrested, and there were tons more that left the city and moved to the mountains to escape Amin's police. Amin had a communist-based government. This belief rejects religion, and this was another reason why there was so much grief with his government, because like everyone in that country was very religious, and there was like lots of Muslims and everything. The Muslims in Afghanistan tried to overthrow the Amin government. They joined a group, which was like a small independent group with a force of holy mission for Allah, which is their god. So the Russians claimed that they were invaded by the Amin government, and that they weren't invading the country. On December 27th in 1979, Amin was shot by the Russians and replaced by Babarat Kamal. His position as the Afghan head government depended on the fact that he needed Russian military to support him to stay in power. So without the Russian military, there would be no way that he would be able to be in power in Afghanistan. So a bunch of the soldiers had left to that small group that was like their mission for God or whatever. So a bunch of them left for that, and the Kamal government needed 85,000 Russian soldiers to keep him in power. So with a bunch leaving, he didn't know if he was gonna have that many people. The little group proved to be like a threatening opponent to the government that was there at the time. So they had old rifles, but they also had so much knowledge of the mountains around Kabul because they had been there for like ever and they had always lived there. The weather conditions that were encountered there, like they knew all of that stuff. The Russians used poisonous gas, napalm, and helicopter gunships against the group. In 1982, the Mujahideen, which was that little group, controlled 75% of Afghanistan, despite fighting the world's second most powerful military power. So the Russians had a hard time keeping control of themselves in the mountains because they weren't aware of the conditions and everything else that was going to come their way in the mountains. So their army boots wouldn't even last more than 10 days without falling apart because of the harsh conditions that were there, and they weren't aware of any of these precautions. So they just went into the mountains like not knowing anything about it. And yeah, so my presentation was about the history of Afghanistan during the time period of the book.